the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord God of Israel. In Jesus' name. Amen. Our God is so worthy.
Worthy of our praise. Praise the Lord with me.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord with me. Everybody get up on your feet.
Get up on your feet.
Praise the Lord with me.
Hey, yeah. Everybody that's here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Turn to Jesus when you can't see the light. Obey His word, we must do what's right. Hold to God till salvation is done. Soon He's coming, He will take us His home. Down to the water. Love the King, Lord. Give me the prayer, Lord.
Only your word, it can save me, save me. Only your spirit, it can change me, change me. Only your water, it can wash me, wash me.
Only you, my Lord.
We had a reading of the law. Exodus 20th chapter, verses 1 through 17. Okay, go ahead.
And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
Now let's go into Ecclesiastes, 12th chapter. Read verses 13 and 14.
Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
Now Revelation chapter 22, read verses 14 and 15.
Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie.
So now we have the reading of the law, sisters and brothers. Like I say all the time, Israel read the law every Sabbath day. And when you read the law every Sabbath day, you keep it fresh in people's mind. But these are the things that the Lord do not want you to do and the things that the Lord wants you to do. As always, it is good to stand before you on the Lord's Sabbath day. You know, we're going to get right into this, sisters and brothers. You know, sometimes it's good to look at the progression of man and see what man is and see how the Lord set things in order, so you will understand that this word of God is not a fluke, sisters and brothers. The Lord have called this creation from day one until the last day. Everything's in order. Believe it or not, everybody's where they're supposed to be. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. Russia is supposed to be jumping on Eastern Europeans, bringing them under his banner. The people that call themselves Jews are supposed to be in the land of Israel, claiming themselves to be Jews. And we, the real Israelites, are supposed to be here and scattered all over the face of the earth. Everybody is where they're supposed to be. And the reason I know, because the Lord pre-recorded it in this Bible. So we're going to go from, the title of this lesson is From Babel to Babylon to the Millennium. From Babel to Babylon to the Millennium. Now we're going to start as in Genesis the 10th chapter. These are the children of Noah. If you didn't come out of one of these sons, then you don't exist, sisters and brothers. This is what has always miffed me by all the hatred and vitriol and damage people do to one another because of nationality, because of color and race. I never could understand that, being that we all have one father and one mother. We don't have to go back to Adam and Eve. We go back to Noah and his wife and his son. And what's so funny about it, all of these people that carry all this vitriol among Israelites and Gentiles and other strangers from one another, they all claim to be serving some God. Now, I have a problem with that. If you're a servant of God, you have a real hard time hurting people. It's all that simple, let alone killing people. I was looking at a black ant in my washroom. I let him go. As he found his way in here, maybe he can find his way out. Okay to kill for food, but just to kill? Now, if I feel like that about an ant, you know what I think about hurting another human being, sisters and brothers. Because we all come from one place. And we're going to start this in Genesis chapter 10 and verse 1. This is our family tree. When I say family, I'm talking about the family of man. Go ahead and read.
Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, and Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah. And the sons of Javan, Elisha, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations.
Now, these are the isles of the Gentiles. You've been taught all your life that if you ain't a Jew, if you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile. That's the biggest lie ever been told. Gentiles don't have nothing to do with Israel. Gentiles don't have anything to do with beliefs. Gentiles are the children of Japheth. And who are the children of Japheth? The people we call white people or European, sisters and brothers. That is the Gentile. If you listen to people talk, Noah didn't have but two sons, Shem and Japheth. But Noah's next son, go ahead and read.
And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Saptah, and Ramah, and Sapteka. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush begot Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord.
Now, these are the children of Ham, the people that are called Africa, sisters and brothers. Like I remember when I was growing up, they showed a picture supposed to have been on the Tower of Babel to have Nimrod there. Big white guy. But no, Nimrod is what we call an African now, son of Ham. What verse was that?
We finished verse 9. We had 10.
Go ahead.
And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel.
Now, when they say the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, it is assumed that Nimrod was the king over the earth when they was building Babylon. And that's not necessarily so, sister and brother. Say, but the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Go ahead and read.
And Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar.
Now, those are Nimrod's kingdom, but we ain't dealing with all Nimrod. We're just showing that how that all the sons of Ham, all the sons of Noah was in one place. Skip down to verse 21. Verse 21 and go ahead.
Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder, even to him were children born.
Now, we're not going to deal with his lineage, but we come out of Shem, sisters and brothers. We didn't come out of Ham. We had another lesson before this to show you that we were not Hamites, even though we're all the same color. So you got Japheth, you got Ham, you got Shem. Skip down to verse 32. Verse 32 and read it.
These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations, in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood.
So these are the sons of the family of the sons of Noah. If you didn't come out of one of these people, one of these sons, sisters, and brothers, you did not exist. That killed all of those things about the Nephilim, children of angels and women, which never was. Then you got somebody else that came across the flood that, well, Israelites used to teach where, you know, you got the strangers and the Gentiles said it was among the animals on it. I said, read that to me. So whatever was on the other side of the flood, it is irrelevant. Because only Noah and his household survived the flood, sisters and brothers. And it was one family. Let's go into 11th chapter of Genesis. 11th chapter of Genesis. And we're going to start at verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
And the whole earth was of one language.
And the whole earth was of one language. I mean, everybody, you didn't need no interpreter, nothing. Why is it that everybody spoke the same language? Because everybody had the same father and mother. So quite naturally, you got siblings, you know, I come out of a big family. We all speak the same language.
That's right.
Go ahead and read.
And of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven.
Go ahead.
And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth.
So now this is a family moving together. Now they're going to build a tower, a big tower, so it'd be something like a beacon, so they wouldn't get scattered away from one another. These sons of Noah wanted to stay with their siblings. They had no interest in getting away from one another. That's why I said, let us build this tower, lest we be scattered over the face of the whole earth. They didn't want to get away from one another. Right. But then that wasn't God's intention. Go ahead and read.
And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do.
And so the people is one. How can the whole world be one? That means they're on the same page, right? You know, this wise man said, if it said one, that means that's one. That means it was all on the same page. They had one desire, and that was to build this tower. And the Lord looked down and he saw, look, the people are one. And what did he do? Go ahead.
And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do.
Go ahead.
Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech.
No, he said, let us go down. The smart person said it was talking about, it was angels he was talking about. I don't read that nowhere. But my problem is I don't read them other books either. I'm not teaching them. I read them now. I know what's in the Apocrypha, believe me. I read it. I know what's in the Holy Quran. I read it. And I think last week or week before last, I showed you the catechism. I read it. You know why I read all these books? So I will know that this book, the King James Version, that is the book. Okay? Mm-hmm. Not because I just say I'm leaning toward it, it's because I have checked them out. I'm a guy that don't believe you. When you tell me something, you should believe me, you just made a useless statement. I will believe you when I check you out. Mm-hmm. Even God said, prove me. So he said it, so I did it. So I'm not offending him because I did it. So now, when it came down, all these guys was here, and when he said, let us go down, let us make a come and confound their language, I know he wasn't talking about angels. You know why? Because he said that in the first chapter of Genesis. Let us make man in our image. Right. Well, all of a sudden now, you talking to one that looked like you, and then you're going to change and start talking about to angels, which some of them have 4 faces and calf feet. And they have wings. I ain't seen nowhere in this Bible where God have wings. So the one that he was talking to in Genesis, the first chapter, that's the one he was talking to him. Because the Father sent Jesus to do this work, and Jesus talked to the Father. Well, you know, he was on earth and the Father in heaven. I said, so what is the difference between immortals with all power? So Jesus was speaking, let us go down. I know it was Jesus because he is the Word, and the Bible lets you know you ain't never heard the voice of nobody, heard the voice of the Father at any time or seen his shape. So we dealing with the one that's called Jesus here. So we went out there and do what? Go ahead, and what verse are we?
We're at verse 8.
Go ahead.
So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, that they left off to build the city.
So all you got to do to scatter people is to fix it so they can't communicate. You can't talk to one another. That's even in marriages. You might speak the same language, but you can't talk to one another.
That's right.
Because somebody's always hot about something. If you can't talk, it can't last. Right. Communication is the glue, sisters and brothers. So the Lord knew that. That's why he came and he confounded the language. Now we're all doing a joint project here. Everyone is like all the guys, well, all the people that built this was Hebrew Israelites, okay? But the whole thing is just like, look at the joint project that you can build. Look at you go and look at the United Nations. They communicate with one another. In the old days, they used to have the interpreter sitting next to them, and they'd interpret. Yeah. But nowadays, pay attention when you look at the United Nations. They got something in their ear, because each speaker speaks in his own language, and everybody else have the interpreter. That's why they can sit there and they can communicate. But if you break the communication, you're going to break up the organization. So when the Lord confounded the languages, the world scattered. Everybody went into their own location. What verse was that?
Go ahead. Verse 9.
Go ahead.
Therefore is the name of it called Babel. Because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from this did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth.
Now that's why it was called Babel. Because that's what you hear, oh man, you just babbling. That means that you ain't saying nothing that I can understand. Don't mean that you ain't saying nothing, but you are not saying anything that I can understand. Because as far as I'm concerned, then, like when you say in the street, you're just bumping your gums. So now, that's why the Lord scattered the whole earth, sisters and brothers, and from that time until the rise of the Babylonian Empire under Nebuchadnezzar, the earth had never been under one government or one system. But then it was brought together during the time of Babylon. I'm talking about the Chaldean Babylon, not the ancient Babylon. This is what people don't understand. The one they call them Chaldeans, the children of Japhet, was not the beginning, was not the first to occupy Babylon. The first Babylonians was Hamites. That's why they get back and get confused. You talk Nebuchadnezzar, Gentile. You talk Hammurabi, the lawgiver, Hamite. But you have to be read to know that kind of stuff, sister and brother. And somewhere along the line, people think that ministers ain't supposed to read. How can you teach anything if you don't know nothing? So now, let's look at the next one that ruled was under one system. Let's go into Jeremiah chapter 27. Jeremiah 27. Because, sisters and brothers, the Lord put this here because he wants you to know it, because we're going to take you to the coming of the Lord, and we're going to point out some people that you didn't even know that these people existed in prophecy. But everything is laid out, sisters and brothers, everything. That's why I notice this God that we serve is authentic. That's when the Lord put it on my mind to write the book, The Four Winds of Heaven. When I was putting that book together, I started to get scared. It frightened me because I saw how accurate the prophets called the operation of this man. I mean, he called it. People I used to read about when I was in school is in the Bible. People like Alexander the Great, Greek Empire. I found out, wait a minute, this stuff here, I learned this when I was in school. 27 and 1. Jeremiah chapter 27 and verse 1. Okay, go ahead.
In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this word unto Jeremiah from the Lord, saying.
Now, this is Jeremiah the prophet writing this during the time of Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Go ahead and read.
Thus saith the Lord to me, make thee bonds and yokes, and put them upon thy neck.
Go ahead.
And send them to the king of Edom, and to the king of Moab, and to the king of the Ammonites, and to the king of Tyrus, and to the king of Zidon, by the hand of the messengers which came to Jerusalem unto Zedekiah, king of Judah.
Now, I want you to get a yoke and put on the neck of all of these kings, because he's finna put them under one person. Go ahead and read.
And command them to say unto their masters, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, thus shall you say unto your master.
Go ahead.
I have made the earth, the man and the beast that are upon the ground, by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me.
Now, you notice he said he made the earth, didn't he? He didn't say a part of it. He made the earth by his own power, and he have given it to whoever it seems good to him to give it to. They're not talking about a piece. In this case, he's talking about the whole earth. Go ahead and read.
And now have I given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant. And the beast of the field have I given him also to serve him.
Now, he said, now I've given this to Nebuchadnezzar, and I mean the whole lands, all of these lands, the whole earth I've given to this guy. Even the beast I've given it to. And that law still go on. That's why you cannot go hunting without a license and out of season. You can't go fishing without a license. You know why? Because the Lord has given them to the hand of man, and whoever's in charge, that's the one that's you got to adhere to. So he gave it all to the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, and they're going to serve him. Go ahead and read.
And all nations shall serve him.
How many nations?
All nations.
That's everybody. Go ahead and read.
Shall serve him. And his son, and his son's son.
Go ahead.
Until the very time of his land come. And then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of him.
Now, this took it away from Nebuchadnezzar.
Yep.
That's why Paul said, rightfully divide the scripture. Because once he said, you're going to serve these nations are going to serve Nebuchadnezzar, his son and his son's son, until his time comes, then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves on him. Now let's see if that happened in Nebuchadnezzar's. We're gonna see later on if that happened in Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon. But before we go there, we're gonna show that this king, the rulership of the whole world, started with Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Let's go into Daniel's the second chapter. Daniel's chapter 2. because it's all laid out, sisters and brothers, and we are going to look at it and show you how long this is going to last and who's going to bring it to an end. Daniel chapter 2, and we're going to start reading at verse 1. Daniel 2 and verse 1. That's why we look at the world. That's when the Lord told you to watch and pray. Watch what? Watch the world events and pray that you survive them. Because if you got some knowledge, you will recognize what he wants you to see when it starts to take place. 2 and 1. Go ahead and read.
And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar.
This is the same King Nebuchadnezzar that God said he's going to give a whole life to. Go ahead and read.
Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, wherewith his spirit was troubled, and his sleep brake from him.
Go ahead.
Then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans for to show the king his dreams.
Go ahead.
So they came and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation.
Now he had this big dream. Not only didn't he know the dream, he forgot how to tell the people what it looked like. He forgot the dream. All he knows is he dreamed something that scared him and woke him up. Now I want y'all to tell me what I dreamed, and I want you to then once you tell me what I dreamed, then I want you to tell me what it meant.
Right.
So what did they say? Go ahead and read.
The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me.
It's gone from me. I don't know what I dreamed. All I know is I dreamed.
That's right.
Go ahead.
If you will not make it known unto me the dream, with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill.
That's really something, man. This guy gonna have a dream, can't tell you what the dream is, and expect you to tell him what the dream is, and expect you to interpret it. And if you don't, he's gonna destroy you and your whole family. Let's see what happens. Skip down to verse 10. Verse 10, and go ahead.
The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore, there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asks such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean.
Now, that was presumptuous of him, wasn't it? Not a man on the earth. You don't know. That's why I never use the word man. There's never, or there can't be. I don't use those words, because that's being presumptuous. They say, so there's not a man on earth can answer this. So ain't no king or no ruler, nothing would ask this of his servant. But go ahead.
And it is a rare thing that the king requireth. And there's none other that can show it before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh.
Well, they got that right, but the only problem they had, they used the word gods. But go ahead and read.
For this cause the king was angry and very furious.
Go ahead.
And commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon.
Now, he got mad and he put out a decree. I want you to destroy all of the wise men of Babylon. But all the wise men of Babylon didn't come before it. There's one thing about nation. If you are captive of a nation, and you could be wiser than everybody in the nation, but when they want advice, they go to people that look like them, not people that look like the captain. So now, they went forth to kill everybody. What verse was that?
We finished verse 12. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain. And they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain.
And they did what? They sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Daniel didn't know nothing about it until the guy come in there to kill it. Then Daniel said, give me some time. I can answer this thing. Skip down to verse 24. Verse 24. And read it.
Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, destroy not the wise men of Babylon.
Go ahead.
Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king their interpretation.
See, when he heard about it, he told the guy, give me a little time. And he went and prayed to the Lord that night. And the Lord showed him the dream and an interpretation of it. Then he told Arioch, take me in before the king. I'll tell him about the dream, and I will interpret it. Skip down to verse 31. because he started and started to tell him what it is and what it meant. Verse 31. Go ahead and read.
Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible.
Go ahead.
This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass.
Go ahead.
His legs of iron, his feet part of iron, and part of clay.
Go ahead.
Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet.
Now is the stone smote the image upon his feet and what?
That were of iron and clay, and break them to pieces.
Now, give me a picture of that stone, brothers. I want you to put it up so you get an idea. So what this thing is look like, and then we're going to break it down. So this great image that Daniel's had, okay? Then he had a stone that hit it on the feet. Where's the stone? Why is it that the stone hit the image on the feet? Being this image represent kingdoms and different periods of time. The reason the stone hit the image on the feet is because the rest of it came and gone, and we're going to break that down for you. So this is what this image looked like, sisters and brothers. Keep reading. What verse?
Verse 35. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth.
Now, this stone that smote this image on the feet became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. What verse was that?
We had 36.
Pardon me?
36.
Go ahead and read.
This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king.
He said, now this is the dream. Now I'm going to tell you what it means. Go ahead and read.
Thou, O king, art a king of kings. For the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory.
Now this said, thou, O king, art king of kings. That's why years ago they used to have a guy that was the head of Persia that used to be with the allies of the United States, and then the guy named himself Shah. Most people didn't understand that means king of kings. So he said, you're a king of kings. This head of gold, that is you. Go ahead and read. What verse?
We're at 38. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold.
So whatsoever the children of men dwell, that covered every area, didn't it? And the fowls of the air, the beasts of the field, the God of heaven have given them into your hand, Nebuchadnezzar. But then some more kingdoms came up. Go ahead and read.
And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee.
And that is the Medo-Persian Empire. God called them in order. Go ahead and read.
And another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth.
That is the Greek Empire. All this is recorded in history, sisters and brothers. All of this. Go ahead and read.
And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise.
Now, this is the Roman Empire. All these are the only four nations that have ever ruled the entire world without competition. You got Russia doing what they're doing, but America is threatening her. You got European threatening. The Western European. You got China with the big power over there. Nobody, no one man is over the whole world like it was in the time of these guys. Persian Empire ruled it all. What verse are we?
We're at 41.
Now, let's see what happened here. Go ahead and read.
And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay.
Now, he hit this. These are the toes, sisters and brothers. So that means you're going to have strong nations and you're going to have weak nations, but you're going to be able to identify them by their amount, how many of them is. Go ahead and read.
And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken.
Now, let's skip down to verse 44 and go ahead.
And in the days of these kings.
Pay attention now. This is something that the world ain't paying no attention to. But in the days of these kings, go ahead.
Shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom.
Shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom. Go ahead.
Which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people.
Go ahead.
But it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever.
So now the stone represents the God of heaven, which is Jesus, sisters and brothers. And who are these toes right now? The European Union. But the world don't know it. You're going to be in church all day tomorrow, serving God and praising Him, but you don't know how close this thing is up on us. Because the Lord said, in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom. But we're going to break it down a little more as we go. But still, this thing started with Babylon. And we read that once Babylon at the time had her in, that a whole lot of nations are going to come in and take her out. But we're going to show you that this couldn't have been talking about the old Babylon, because we want to show you how the old Babylon ended. Let's go into Daniel, the 5th chapter.
45. 45.
Huh?
You got to read 45.
Oh, read 45? I'm sorry. Read verse 45. Go ahead.
For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it break in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure.
So the Lord showed you this, that you will know what's going to come to pass hereafter. So that when people get some understanding, they read these things and they know what the world is. And they know what the world is going, when the world is, when it's going to end, after certain things that take place. So now let's go into Daniel, the 5th chapter, and see how the Babylonian kingdom ended. Let's see if a whole lot of nations come in and knock the kingdom of Babylon out. We're going to start at verse 1. Daniel 5 and 1. Okay, go ahead.
Belshazzar, the king, made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the 1,000.
Now this Belshazzar was Nebuchadnezzar's son or grandson. History have him, some history books say son and some say grandson. All I know is, but he was still king over Babylon.
That's right.
Because Nebuchadnezzar had passed on then. Go ahead and read.
Belshazzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein.
That was a big mistake. Even though they was captive and the Lord let Nebuchadnezzar destroy the temple in Jerusalem and take all the holy stuff and put it in storage, Nebuchadnezzar found out later on who God really ruled his world.
That's right.
Because he even put a decree out there that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's God is God. And anybody praise any other God other than Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's God, he gonna put him to death. That looked like somebody had been converted, hadn't it? Think about it. So now, but his stupid son, or either grandson, whichever it was, he decided he's going to take these vessels, which were still holy, because God made them holy. If God make you holy, can't nobody make you unholy. And look what he did. Go ahead and read.
Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem.
Go ahead.
And the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines drank in them.
They were having them a good time. And look what they did. Go ahead and read.
They drank wine and praised the gods of gold.
They praised the God of gold. Go ahead.
And of silver.
And of silver.
Of brass.
Of brass.
Of iron.
Iron.
Of wood.
Of wood.
And of stone.
They praised the God of material stuff.
That's right.
That sounds like a prosperity preacher to me. They praised the God of material stuff instead of praising the God in whose breath their hand was, and in whose breath, in whose hand their breath was in. But go ahead and read.
In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace.
All of a sudden, poof, a hand showed up. Probably started on one side and just went all the way across. And everybody's looking. And went over to the plaster of the wall. Go ahead and read.
And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him.
Go ahead.
So that the joints of his loins were loose, and his knees smote one against another.
Boy, you know you're scared when your knees knock, right? I don't know about other people, but I know I got scared a few times. My knees was knocking, I couldn't stop them. That's how scared he was. And look what he did. Go ahead.
The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom.
Look, the same thing happened with his father, with his dream. Now all of a sudden, he wants somebody to interpret what this writing was on the wall. They couldn't tell it. So the king's mother is the one that told him, look, you got somebody in your kingdom that's from among the captives. He's the one that told your daddy what was going on. So you should call him. And he called him. Skip down to verse 13, because these guys could not interpret the dream. So he went to the captives just like his daddy did, because his mama told him to. Go ahead and read.
Then was Daniel brought in before the king. And the king spake and said unto Daniel, art thou that Daniel, which art of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry?
Ain't you that son of a slave, which my father brought out of Jewry? He couldn't even say Jerusalem, couldn't he? Yeah, Daniel. But that was the one that he had to deal with. That's right. Let's see what Daniel did. Skip down to verse 17. Verse 17 and go ahead.
Then Daniel answered and said before the king, let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king and make known to him the interpretation.
Look, a true man of God, he ain't concerned about getting gifts and all that kind of stuff and money. Because if you're a servant of God, he's going to take care of you anyway. You don't worry about that. Right. What you worry about is getting his word straight. Right. He says, so now what you do is you give your gift to others. But I'm going to tell you what the dream is and the interpretation of it. You know why? Because the man of God trying to do it. You know, I'll let you in on a big secret. A lot of these Hebrews that run off from the Israel of God and be bad-mouthing me, they call me on the telephone when they get hung up on Scripture. And you know what I do when they call me? Yes. I get the book and I answer it. I don't get smart, don't get sarcastic. You know why? Because I am a watchman. And if anybody asks me what thus said the Lord, I am compelled by the Spirit that the Lord has invested in me to answer it. So now, he might have insulted Daniel, but Daniel still had to do what he had to do. So he interpreted the dream. Skip down to verse 25. We finished 17, right?
That's right. That's right.
Skip down to verse 25 and go ahead.
And this is the writing that was written. Mene, tekel, upharsin.
You notice now it was written in an unknown tongue, right? That's because people are messed up speaking in tongues. This was written in an unknown tongue.
That's right.
So he said, this is what you mean unknown tongue? This is a language that nobody else know about.
That's right.
But God always have an interpreter. Right. Started over again. Go ahead.
And this is the writing that was written. Mene, tekel, upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing.
Go ahead.
Mene, God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished.
He said, God have numbered your kingdom and finished it, mister. He didn't have to insult him because he know what God going to do to him.
Right.
So Daniel wasn't insulted. Daniel didn't have the problem. He had the problem. Right. He done numbered your kingdom and he done finished it. Go ahead and read.
Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting.
He done put you on the scale, mister, and you are lightweight. Go ahead and read.
Perez, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians.
While you breathing, he done gave your kingdom to the Medes and the Persians. He had a right for his knees to be knocking. But this was the result of drinking out of the vessels of God. Oh, the kingdom had to come to an end. However, it didn't have to be in his time. How many times the Lord told certain kings, I'm going to bring Israel to the end or Judah to the end, but not in your time, in your son's time. See, but now, what else did he say? Go ahead.
Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet and put a chain of gold about his neck and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom.
In the kingdom, this ain't going to last another day. Go ahead.
In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old.
Now, God had him killed at night, and Darius the Median took the screen. That's why it is called the Medo-Persian Empire, because the first set of people that took over after the Chaldeans, which was the Babylonians, was the Medes and the Persians. But the Mede took it over first. And the Persians are the one that made the big history. But the whole thing is, look at this now. Did a lot of nations knock Babylon off?
No.
It wasn't knocked off by the hand of a modern nation. It was inherited by Darius the Mede. So now, if that's the case, then we know that God can't lie. Why then did he say, you are going to, at the end of their time, that a whole lot of great nations are going to come and knock them off? Because, sisters and brothers, even though the kingdom was ruled over by the Medo-Persian, by the Greek, and by the Roman, still the kingdom was one. You know, their stature was one piece? And they was all Gentile. So it was a great Gentile dynasty, sisters and brothers. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to go on the second, did we finish that?
Yes.
Now let's go a little further, because we're going to show you that even though, sisters and brothers, that you had all these national names, still the kingdom was Babylon. Because the Lord said at the end of their time, many nations and great kings going to serve themselves on Babylon. But we didn't see it there. In fact, Babylon, the original Babylon, did not fall by war. It didn't fall by any kind of hostilities. The Lord had the king of Babylon assassinated, Belshazzar, and then you had Darius the Mede to take over the kingdom. That let me know, but there's another Babylon somewhere, because prophecy cannot be broken. So let's go into 2 Chronicles, the 36th chapter. 2 Chronicles, the 36th chapter. And we're going to start this with our king, sisters and brothers. 2 Chronicles chapter 36. So these things you pay attention to. That's why when you read, I tell people read. When you're going to read, I mean read. Don't just go to speed reading. I mean you dissect every little word. Because there's one thing with this Bible. The Lord can tell you 2, 3 things in one verse. That's why you get some people that call in question and answer. Could you explain to me in Daniel's 1-20? A whole lot of stuff can happen in them 20 verses. You can't you can't do the Bible like that. You understand? 36, and we're going to start at reading at verse 11. 2 Chronicles chapter 36 and verse 11. Because the Lord said, we're going to serve until the time comes. But in the meantime, somebody else end up in the fray. Because we saw that the Persians is the one, the Mede is the one that inherited the kingdom, and the Persian came on later, sisters and brothers. So we're going to pick this up at Zedekiah. This is the last king that Israel had ever had. We ain't never had a king since him. Assyrians took out the 9 tribes. Babylon took out Judah, which is the 3 tribes. And this is the last king that Israel has ever had, Zedekiah. Verse 11. 2 Chronicles chapter 36 and verse 11. Go ahead.
Zedekiah was 1 and 20 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem.
Go ahead.
And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord his God.
Now that's why we end up getting in trouble, because we had all these kings that did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. But now we come over here, and in other places we want to put the finger on everybody else. Had we obeyed God, we would be the head of everything. But we chose to do our own thing. But go ahead and read what verse?
Middle of 12.
Go ahead.
And humbled not himself before Jeremiah the prophet, speaking from the mouth of the Lord.
And he wouldn't listen to Jeremiah. He didn't have nothing. He didn't want to hear nothing Jeremiah had to say. And he was speaking from the mouth of the Lord. All of them knew that Jeremiah was a prophet. But I'm king. I ain't got to listen to nothing you got to say. Skip down to verse 17 and let's see what happened. Go ahead.
Therefore he brought upon them the king of the Chaldees.
That's Nebuchadnezzar, still and the Babylonians. Those are Chaldeans, those are the white Babylonians. Go ahead and read.
Who slew their young men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary, and had no compassion upon young man or maiden.
Go ahead.
Old man or him that stooped for age, he gave them all into his hand.
Ain't that what's happening in Ukraine?
That's right.
People don't understand that when you have war, everybody die. Well, you see, we ain't going to stone this part, bomb this part because you got children and women there. Bomb don't know what's there. And the people that's mad that's doing it don't care. So when the Lord had Nebuchadnezzar go in and take out Jerusalem, them Babylonians didn't have pity on nobody. Skip down to verse 20 and go ahead.
And them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babylon, where they were servants to him and his sons unto the reign of the kingdom of Persia.
So the ones that he did carried to Babylon, and they served Babylon to the reign of the kingdom of Persia. But Persia wanted first to rule. It was the Medes that ruled first. But let you know how far this thing was going down. Go ahead and read.
To fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah.
Go ahead.
Until the land had enjoyed her Sabbaths. For as long as she lay desolate, she kept Sabbath.
Go ahead.
To fulfill 70 years.
Now, sir, and Jeremiah had said, look, I'm going to take Judah down, and they're going to be in captivity for 70 years. I'm talking about real, literal 70 years. Go ahead and read.
Now, in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom and put it also in writing, saying.
Now look, Darius the Mede inherited the kingdom. And then the kingdom went to the Persian. That's why it's called the Medo-Persian Empire. So it was from Darius the Mede until Cyrus the Persian. But this Cyrus, believe it or not, this guy was a man of God. And so Cyrus made a proclamation and put it in writing. And what was it? Go ahead and read.
Thus said Cyrus, king of Persia. All the kingdoms of the earth hath the Lord God of heaven given me.
He said, all of them have he given me. Go ahead and read.
And he hath charged me to build him an house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is there among you of all his people? The Lord his God be with him and let him go up.
Now that's another lesson. We did that, last week or week before last?
Last week.
To show you how that history backed up what Cyrus did right here. All this stuff is fact, sisters and brothers. I'm talking about absolute fact. So now, what happened? Cyrus came down and he ruled and gave a proclamation that Israel is to be released. But still, even though it was called the kingdom of Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, it was still the Babylonian kingdom because he was the head and the stature was not broken up. Let's go into Ezra, the 5th chapter. We're going to show you that this was still Babylon. Ezra chapter 5. And we're going to start at verse 11. Ezra chapter 5 and verse 11. 5 and 11. Okay, go ahead.
And thus they returned us an answer, saying, we are the servants of the God of heaven and earth, and build the house that was builded these many years ago, which a great king of Israel builded and set up.
See, now look, Cyrus gave it a decree to build this temple. And what happened was the local people lied on Israel, and they sent a letter to the Persian, and they stopped it for a minute. But then these guys said, look, God of Israel is the one that gave us the decree to do this. And we're going to do this. Go ahead and read.
But after that our fathers had provoked the God of heaven unto wrath, he gave them into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon.
Go ahead.
The Chaldean.
So he's letting you know that God is the one that gave Judah into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, the Chaldean. Go ahead and read.
Who destroyed this house, carried the people away into Babylon.
So Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the house, and he carried all the people that he didn't kill at Babylon. Go ahead and read.
But in the first year of Cyrus, the king of Babylon, the same King Cyrus made a decree to build this house of God.
What did I miss there?
But in the first year of Cyrus, the king of Babylon.
It didn't say king of Persia, didn't it? Because it was still Babylon, even though it was called Persia, because the Persian was king. And you still have your Medo-Persian here, don't you all know that? You know who the Medes are? That's the one that's jumping all over the Ukraine. You know who the Persians are? Those are Iranians. They are not Arabs. Arabs are Shemites, are Semitic. Persians are Gentile. But the world don't know that. So now, Cyrus was also king of Babylon, because this great Gentile dynasty, sisters and brothers, were called by other names. Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. Now Rome was to fall and rise 10 times, but ain't nobody paying no attention to it. And we're looking at the 10th resurrection right now in Western Europe. You know what the world called it? And they call themselves the European Union. These guys are running Western Europe, and find out, pay attention, the one that's commissioned to run it are 10 nations. Why 10, Brother Boyd? Because God called it. We have material to show you that. Ain't something that we believe. So now, but the nation is the Gentile dynasty, and the nation is still under the same name. Now we're going to look at this 10th resurrection that ain't nobody paying no attention to. Let's go into Revelation, the 13th chapter. Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13. And we're going to start reading at verse 1. Revelation chapter 13 and verse 1. Because it's supposed to rise and fall 10 times. Rome was. And we're going to look at this final resurrection. And we are in the days of these kings. When I tell people, I say, look, I believe I can live, be here when the Lord comes. Oh, brother, look, the Lord, when he comes, then he said, in 1 Thessalonians, the 4th chapter, said the dead going to be raised and the living changed. That means that somebody's going to be living when Jesus comes. And looking at prophecy, I'm thinking maybe I might be one of them somebodies. Revelation 13 and 1. Go ahead.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
What do you mean 7 heads and 10 horns? Where did 7 heads come from? That's the system that they came out of. You had Nebuchadnezzar, 1 head. Medo-Persia represented 1 head. Then you have the Greek Empire, which was 4 heads, sisters and brothers. Then you had the Roman Empire, which was 1 head. Ain't that 7 heads? This is the same system. We don't know that. People think the Senate and Congress started in America. No, they stole that from the ancient Roman Empire. Because this is one nation. Having 7 heads and 10 horns. Go ahead and read. Now, who are the 10 horns? Those are the same 10 toes that Daniel was talking about. But John called them 10 horns. Go ahead and read.
And upon his horns 10 crowns.
That means that each one of them was a head of state. Go ahead and read.
And upon his heads the name of blasphemy.
Go ahead.
And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion.
Go ahead.
And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority.
Now, why was it saying it was they blasphemed? Because they got their power from the dragon. Who is the dragon? Satan the devil. They got their power from Satan, sisters and brothers. So that's for the religion that come out of Satan, turn everything upside down. Well, what you mean? I tell people, don't you know you're a Roman Catholic? No, I'm a Baptist. What do you do on Christmas? You put that tree in your front yard. I'm a Methodist. What do you do on Easter? You eat anything. You teach that you're going to heaven. Don't you know there is not one place in the Bible where the Lord said, I am going to take you to heaven? Not one. I'm going to put the burden of finding two. You can't find one. But my preacher said, that's the problem. Your preacher said, and he didn't read. It is not read. So now, you think that Satan going to give power to somebody and they don't do what he want to do? Don't you know that Satan is the only one in the whole Bible say he want to go to heaven? On your own, go to Isaiah the 14th chapter and start reading at verse 12 and see what Lucifer said. He going to go to heaven. I'm going to go above the clouds. He wants to go back to where he came from. He wants to go home. But he was thrown out. But every funeral, they teach his doctrine. Oh, that's not Sister Jackson now. That's just her body. She done made her homecoming. What you mean make her homecoming? She didn't come from heaven. She come out the ground. The homecoming is not made, sisters and brothers, until they take him to the cemetery and put him in the ground. Nah, she done made her homecoming, and she going to be there until the Lord comes. Otherwise, Jesus lied in St. John, the 6th chapter, when he said that all that the Father give me, I will lose nothing, but I will raise it up at the last day. Is the last day here? Nobody read, but everybody want to talk. Verse what?
Verse 3.
Go ahead and read.
And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death.
Go ahead.
And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast.
Now, we have a lesson that covers all of this, sisters and brothers. It covers in the book that the Lord called me to write, but we have a lesson about the Gentile dynasty. I mean, give you dates and times and names. So you cannot possibly make an error. You know where you are. Skip down to verse 5 and read it.
And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things.
Go ahead.
And blasphemies. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months.
That's the 3.5 years of great tribulation. This thing jumped way. See, this is the resurrection of this thing. We are living in this time. Power was given unto him to rule 3.5 years. That's the 42 months. Skip down to verse 7. Go ahead.
And it was given unto him to make war with the saints.
Wait a minute. Who are the saints? These are the people that really believe in God. And that believe in keeping his commandments and honor this Sabbath day. These are going to make war with the saints. Go ahead and read.
And to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. You ever heard somebody say it by rumor that you're going to have to receive a mark, which is called a mark of the beast? And if you don't have that mark, you can't buy or sell. We got a lesson to show that too, sisters and brothers. In fact, we got a lesson from Genesis and Revelation. So now, what's happening is, this guy was given power over all nations, and there but one way, one place where the servants of God will be safe, and that's called a place of safety.
awesome.